Hi, my name's Daniel from the Netherlands, and I play at Hilversum Golf Club. Welcome to Golf Smarter.
My name is Bob Fairchild, and I'm from San Anselmo, California. My favorite golf course is Royal County Down in Northern Ireland. This is Golf Smarter, number 1010.
We're just trying to gather data on uneven lies. And I'm very guilty of this. I always thought that if the ball is above your feet, the person is going to hit it to the low side. Uphill lie is going to hit it higher and shorter, and a downhill lie is going to hit it lower. Well, it just gives people a chance to hit these shots. We don't really necessarily see the results aren't as simple as we think. Of the people we had today, probably 25% of them hit it higher on an uphill lie than they do off the level lie. So they're on an uphill lie, counterintuitive, but depends on their swing. And we had some people, and we've seen this so far in gathering this data, that if the ball is below their feet, they actually hit it straighter and their club head speed increases. But what are they thinking? They're thinking that it's going to go to the right because that's what people like me have told them. And then they hit 5 shots and they're all going dead straight, but they're aiming left. So they're thinking they're doing something wrong in their technique, but maybe depending on your golf swing, the ball below your feet, you'll hit it pretty straight, so you don't have to aim left.
Instinct Putting, the revolutionary science-based method at looking where you putt, with Eric Alpenfels.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Eric.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you back again. I just, for reference points, I want to say that you were on episodes 47 and 48. We did 2 weeks in a row talking about Pinehurst in November of 2006.
Wow.
Then you came back after Instinct Putting came out, the book Instinct Putting, which we're going to talk a lot about today. That was episode 138 in August of 2008. August 5th. We're doing an August 5th episode this year too. And then you were on in 2016, episode 540. More talk about instinct putting. And as I progress in my journey of golf, and I keep going back to that book, and now it really is starting to make sense to me.
That's
instinct
good.
Putting.
That's great.
But let's start talking first about your latest book, called Evidence-Based Golf.
Mm-hmm.
It's not storytelling. It's a science-based book, right?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if dry is the right word, but it's science.
Yeah.
And so you have to be prepared to, when you get into the book, that's where you're going. Don't expect cute stories about somebody hitting a golf ball.
No, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's a summary of our research for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And your research, you had a partner on both of these books.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted you to say we need to talk about the evidence?
Well, it's a good question. I think for us, Bob Christina, who's my research partner, we started probably in 1990. I actually reached out to him via a friend of ours, a mutual friend, a girl named Carol Mann. And I was looking for insight into how to do a research study for the World Scientific Congress of Golf, which it's held in St. Andrews University. And I wanted to do a summary of our golf school students and just needed his advice on how to present that and how to gather the data and do a summary. So anyway, we started this conversation and we started doing research together with the thought of, let's make it evidence-based. It's not anecdotal. Let's make sure it's research that can stand up, where we can stand up in front of an academic environment and people will appreciate the steps we went through, the protocols we follow. And that's really when we started doing all this stuff. And the book was just a natural transition where we thought we need to publish this and summarize some of our more, at least to us, the more important studies.
Why did you need to be a scholastic? You said, for scholastic presentation.
Well, just more academic. If you go to a World Congress of Golf where it's it's where you would bring together researchers in different environments where they look at human performance, maybe the biomechanics of a golf swing. They do presentations on agronomy, equipment, things like that. So it's the idea is that I didn't want to stand up in front of an audience of researchers and not be able to present the material the right way and not have done the research the right way. So I guess when I'm saying that more, it's certainly a more academic environment where you're talking and presenting in front of researchers who do research on human performance and other sports, and so it's kind of a gathering of that type of a group. Okay. And it's held pretty much every 4 years at St. Andrews. I mean, it's off and on.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. And what we haven't established is what you do. Let's put this in perspective here.
Well, my title here, I guess I have to kind of think of what I do. I do a little bit of different stuff, but I'm the director of instruction as well as the golf academy at Pinehurst, and I've been here about 40 years. And so my major job is to teach in golf schools and run the golf schools here at the facility. I do some individual lessons as well, but not nearly as much individual lessons as golf schools. And the flexibility I have is to do things like the research, and that's part of my job as well, is to do research projects that could propel our information we're giving our students a little bit more forward, and maybe try to be less anecdotal instructors and more instructors that are based on research, and again, back to the evidence-based instruction.
And you're a PGA master professional.
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means you instruct instructors.
Yeah, fair amount. Yeah, fair amount. Not a ton with our schedules here. I do a fair amount for the PGA. Have done a fair amount over the years as an adjunct faculty member. But I certainly train the folks I work with here and then the professional staff here. But yeah, I do a little of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you would need to get in front of a large group to present the science-based.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, you talk about empirical versus non-empirical evidence in the book. Mm-hmm. Why don't you explain those to me?
Well, I guess from my perspective, the terms are just that you're trying to draw data that you're trying to utilize research and such that will make the data that would hold up under scrutiny, I guess, is in my mind how we think of it. At least I think of it. A fair amount of instruction to me seems to be anecdotal. And it's not a criticism of teachers, but I think as teachers you naturally rely on what works for you, and sometimes the thought is it's going to work for everybody. And so I think our goal with the research we've done is trying to cut through some of the stuff that happens that is successful for one teacher and not necessarily applicable to other students. And I guess I'm thinking in terms of, let's say, I'm thinking of like a full swing cue. Let's say somebody swings out to in a downswing, which is a pretty common error. Mm-hmm. Well, one form of a swing cue would be to swing, kind of do some sort of internal cue where you drop your right arm into your side or try to have your right elbow touch your side in the downswing to change the path of the club. And then another strategy could be to think more in terms of the club head. So those two types of approaches are very good cues. I mean, they certainly work. I mean, you've certainly heard to, drop your right elbow in your side to swing out to the right, so I think we all have heard that. But they're two distinctly different approaches. One is external cue, where you're thinking about the club head, and the internal cue is where you're thinking about the body. And so they're two different strategies. And so the stuff that we like to do is we like to pit those two against each other to see which ones could be more effective in the downswing or making the swing change. So the idea is that you have research that would support one way could be better than another way, or at least giving people the option to know there's two ways to work on a downswing. So kind of a long story, but that's kind of what we enjoy doing. It's helpful for our teaching too. When we're looking at a student that's swinging out to in, it's nice to have two different approaches to fixing it versus always relying on the one. And that's kind of where we feel like we're helping our students have a different way to approach the same thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't worry about long answers. We like long answers here. Take your time. Make
Well,
sure that you get everything you
rambled on
want.
a little bit, but okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'm curious. Now, this is directed for this information, this content, this science is based and directed at golf instructors, not the average golfer, correct?
Well, what is, yeah, our goal with the research, I mean, this is kind of back to the days that Bob Christine and I really set out to do this research together. Our thought was that if we could do research that would be beneficial to the students at Pinehurst, so we could take two different swing cues and test one, or maybe a training aid. We could test a training aid and see which one's more efficient, and that could be beneficial to our students. But we also wanted to do research that could be helpful for a golf instructor to maybe see it in a different way and maybe be able to think about it in a different way. And that could be beneficial to the instructor, which would then be beneficial to the student. So beneficial to our students, beneficial to the instructors out there, and then also to something that we could present that could be permeated out to the world of golf, like via a golf magazine. So back in 2000, I guess it was, we've started really doing a series of articles for Golf Magazine, and that have continued, where we just, again, back in that day, we worked with Lauren Anderson, and we might just do 2 or 3 studies on the best way to practice lag putting. Actually, that's where the Instinct Putting book came from, because we did a study for Lauren Anderson, and we had people practice looking at the hole while they were working on their distance control, and that kind of shifted into that type of study.
So with evidence-based golf, the book, again, would you, if one of your students, a new golfer versus a very serious golfer, but came to you and said, I saw that you have this book, Evidence-Based Golf. I'm just learning to play. Is this something I should be reading, or should I just listen to my teacher and not get myself caught up in this? I'm new to the game. I play a couple times a year, and
Sure. Well, I think that's interesting. I think for some people, the having that type of information is important, and they have an appreciation for maybe the simplicity of a study where we just look at how high you should tee your driver, and understanding that how the study took place, the findings, the summary of the findings. I mean, it's pretty simple, but at the same time, maybe that person, it would kind of interest them in that regard. Just that reading it, it would be interested in it. I'd say probably for a beginner golfer, it wouldn't really be something that would be a necessity. I would strongly suggest they read more material on the ball flight laws and have a better understanding of what makes the ball do what it does. I think one of the questions I've always gotten from folks over the years, still do, if you're going to give somebody a book to read, what book would you give them to read? And I've always told people, go read The Quick Cures for the Weekend Golfer. Whether you're a new teacher or you're a new golfer, having a good sense of ball flight and the being able to look at ball flight and diagnose what's going on in your swing or the student's swing is not a bad idea. So that book's been around forever, probably 1973. But it was John Jacobs looking at ball flight, how, what makes the ball do what it's doing. The new material out there that's even more in depth because of TrackMan and some of the technology we have, it's even better. So having a good sense of ball flight and what makes the ball do what it does, I would be suggesting to any newer golfer. And I'd also suggest that to instructors too, because there seems to be some misconceptions out there what's really going on.
Yeah, I can definitely see instructors like reading this saying, got it. Okay, I understand that. But then I also see, because the audience on this show runs the gamut from beginning, new golfers to, and I've had a lot of instructors say that they use this show as research, which is really awesome. But the beginning golfer, it's like, I don't know what am I supposed to do with this, but I can see a teacher saying, absolutely, makes total sense.
Yeah, I think, for a beginner golfer, I'm not too sure. I mean, I certainly have people say that they've enjoyed it, but I think it's more they're not really, I guess probably I have met a couple people that were newer to the game and read it, but
Yeah.
I think they'd probably read any type of book like that and enjoy it, just kind of how their brain thinks and how they like that side of things. So maybe more of it, just their background.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as a beginner golfer, I'm not too sure. I mean, certainly the studies where we talk about those two types of cues, internal and external, would be interesting. But I'm not even too sure a beginner could really apply that to their own game as much as an instructor could to their teaching.
Yeah, we've had a lot of scientists on and mental coaches talking about internal versus external targets.
Mm-hmm.
And that how if you're focusing on your mechanics while you're hitting a ball or while you're making your swing, let's not even talk about hitting a ball.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making your swing, if you're thinking about your mechanics, chances are it's not going to go well.
It's really hard, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, when we're kind of looking at that, and that, you mentioned earlier the rabbit hole. You can kind of go down the rabbit hole of some of the stuff, but I think what's interesting from my perspective is that if you talk to the amateur golfer, you know, we have them fill out a questionnaire to start before they start the school, and it's overwhelming the amount of internal swing cues they have when they walk in the door. You ask them what they're working on, and they'll give you probably the average be 4 or 5 things they're working on in their swing when they're hitting a golf ball, which is, of course, that's challenging. But they all tend to be internal in nature. So I turn my shoulders, I shift my weight, I drop my right elbow to my side, whatever it is. And they don't really think a lot about what the club's doing. And their awareness of what the club's doing is really challenging for them because they think, again, they pick up a book and it's probably going to be geared towards internal cues. They're going to read a blog and it's going to be probably internal cues. They're going to hear tour players talking about what they're working on. They're probably going to be some internal cues, and it's challenging for them. So I think for the student, at least my experience has been, if they recognize that there's 2 types of swing cues, and that they can, if they just give it a thought, they can figure out an external swing cue where they think about the club that could replace the internal cue, and they're going to probably be a little bit better off with that if they just took the time to do that. But they kind of default into left arm straight, shoulder turn, whatever
Yeah.
they're doing.
Right. And there's a myriad of things that they're thinking about all the way across. And you were saying you started doing this research back at the, let's call it the turn of the century.
Seems like it, yeah.
I know. It's when you say that, folks our age, we always think of going 1800 to 1900, but that's not where we are.
Yeah.
But the technology from when you started to today is so radically different.
Yeah.
How has it impacted the results of your studies, and if you had to redo some?
I think we were always pretty lucky with any type of study that we were doing. We always had outcome. It was always based on well, not all of them, but outcome is probably the majority of the studies. So if we didn't have the technology where we could measure it with a TrackMan or back in 2000, the Titleist launch monitor they had, if we couldn't utilize that, we could always measure it just the old-fashioned way, which would be hit a bunch of golf balls on a flat surface and measure how far they are offline. Look at the dispersion rate that way. So we've always been able to do that, but the technology makes it a lot easier, and certainly we can get more into some of the finer secondary measures that we'd be looking at. But I remember years ago we did a study on the length of a driver out on the first hole of number 2, which is at the time was relatively flat, wall-to-wall grass, and so there wasn't any waste areas. And they mowed the area down slightly for us, and we just had people hit drivers off the first tee, and they hit drivers that were 1 inch over standard length, and 1 inch under standard length. And of course, everybody liked the longer shafted driver, but they were more accurate with the shorter shafted driver, which was kind of the name of the game.
The longer one, you're getting more distance.
Yeah, on the 1 out of 10, they hit a little bit further. The other 9 weren't as good. And then the shorter shafted driver, they hit a lot straighter. And at the end of the day, the average was greater. But they always remembered that 1 or 2 drivers that went with the longer club. So, yeah.
Exactly.
But everybody knows that. But we did it the old-fashioned way. We had a rope down the middle of the fairway, and we measured the dispersion off the center line of the fairway, and we did it that way. But So nowadays that'd be a lot easier with TrackMan.
How high tech of you!
Yeah, yeah. We didn't even use rangefinders. We just had a one of those long yard or the measuring tools that would run for 50 feet. So we just run back and forth with that. So yeah, we did it old school for a while, but the technology has really changed it because we can look at so many different things. Right now we're just trying to gather data on uneven lies, and at least, and I'm very guilty of this, but I always thought that if the ball is above your feet, the person is going to hit it to the low side. So the ball's above my feet, it's going to go to the low side. If the ball is below my feet, it's going to go to the low side or the right side. Uphill lie is going to hit it higher and shorter, and a downhill lie is going to hit it lower. Well, if you just give people a chance to hit these shots, we don't really necessarily see it's that easily defined, or the results aren't as simple as we think. We're running some people through the uneven lies today, and of the people we had today, probably 25% of them hit it higher on an uphill lie than they do off the level lie. So they're on a uphill lie.
I could see that.
Counterintuitive, but depends on their swing. And we had some people, and we've seen this so far in gathering this data, that if the ball is below their feet, they actually hit it straighter, and their club head speed increases. But what are they? Yeah, but what are they thinking? They're thinking that it's going to go to the right because that's what people like me have told them. And then they hit 5 shots and they're all going dead straight, but they're aiming left. So they're thinking they're doing something wrong in their technique. But maybe depending on your golf swing, the ball below your feet, you'll hit it pretty straight, so you don't have to aim left. So that's where TrackMan can be so helpful, or some of the other technology can be so helpful, because you can really measure this stuff and get a really good sense of what the ball is doing. Where watching it live without that technology, it's hard to kind of gauge that, okay, that was 2 more degrees left. It's hard to do there. But the technology allows us to do that. So kind of a long answer, but the technology has been a huge change and helpful for us.
It's very funny that you talk about the scientific process is, you got to look at the process versus the outcome. But when we're teaching golf, or when we're telling people about golf, it's like, just think about the process. Don't worry about the outcome. Mm-hmm. And on the scientific one, you're thinking about the outcome, not the process, right? But golfers, stop thinking about the outcome. What's going to happen?
For sure, yeah. No, that's true. I mean, if you're going to go hit a golf ball over water, don't be worrying about the water. Think about the process that'll help you hit it over the water, for sure. The outcome will wear you out, but will make it harder, for sure.
Will wear you out, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
the outcome.
People get sideways on stuff. But I mean, it is interesting. We did a study a couple years ago, rather, I guess now. And so there's 2 ways to aim. If you're out on the golf course, do you use an intermediate target?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's
every shot.
Yeah.
For me, every shot there's an intermediate target.
You like that? It works for you. Uh-huh. So we did a study where we had people come in and they did multiple ways of aiming. One way was using the intermediate target, and they would hit shots, and we just measured the outcome. And then there's another way, obviously, where you aim at the target and the distance. We phrase that, or we think of it as term as distal target aiming. So you're aiming at a pin or a middle of fairway, whatever it is. So you've got 2 distinct ways. And we had people just hit shots, and we just measured the outcome. Aim it up and hit it, and let's see what happens. And we found that as groups, one way was not really more effective than the other. Now, I had cameras mounted on the ceiling at the same time and looking at the club face, and I would say that the intermediate target, people seem to be aiming a degree or 2 more square to that to the target line than if they didn't have the intermediate target. So, but again, we didn't see anything significant in the outcome. So at the end of the day, figure out which one's best for you, either intermediate or the distal target. But again, as a golfer, maybe that would be helpful for you to now say, okay, I'm going to go practice and I'm going to hit 20 shots with my 6-iron with one strategy, and then 20 shots with my 6-iron the other way, and see which one I perform better with. Kind of look at the dispersion. Or maybe go out on the golf course and play a round of golf with one way or the other. And so, that's kind of where I guess I'm kind of circling back to, that's kind of what we try to do here research-wise, that just makes it a little bit more research-driven than just anecdotal, where my generation would have been told, use the intermediate target no matter what. It's the only way to do it, which again, maybe that's not always the case for everybody.
Right. Right. And let's define intermediate target for those who are now their ears are perked like, wait a minute, is that something that's a few inches in front of the ball, or is that the midpoint of where my distal target is?
Well,
where would you define?
We defined it as 2 feet in front of the golf ball.
Okay.
So now the idea of it being that close to the golf ball was most people can look at the club face and peripherally aim the club face at that intermediate target without having to move their head. And so that was the idea of just making it simpler that way. And we did meet some people that used intermediate targets, and they were 80 yards away. So maybe I'd keep
like
it
golf,
a little closer.
It varies from person to person.
But when we tested it, we did 2 feet. Yeah, just to streamline it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is the perfect opportunity to pivot when you talk about looking at it, while you're hitting it or not. Let's move on to instinct putting.
Sure.
I've become pretty obsessed with it lately. I've been reading the book and finding that I really like it.
Good.
A lot. And when I talk to people about it, they're like, that is the most radical thing, the most heretical thing, heretical concept that I've ever heard. And then, you bring up the obvious conversation of when you're shooting a basket, are you looking at the ball?
Yeah.
No. When you're hitting a baseball, and they're like, oh yeah, hitting a baseball. No, you're looking at the ball, but you're not looking at the bat.
Yeah.
Like with tennis. And what I've really been very pleased with is when I'm doing shorter putts, especially because that's the bugaboo for me is, you got to make those 4 and 5 footers, 6 footers, 8 footers. When I'm looking at the hole versus looking at the ball, I don't think about, or I don't get caught up in the mechanics of the swing like I do when I'm looking at the ball and watching the putter head move around. I'm like, oh, no, and then the distrust, the doubt just flares up like fireworks versus when I'm looking at the hole.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think most of the time when I meet somebody that is doing the idea of looking at the hole, it really just frees them up a little bit and makes the whole motion a little bit more athletic. And even though there could be flaws in their stroke, if they just make it a little bit more athletic, it tends to be a little bit more consistent. And if it's a little bit more consistent, there's a little bit more predictability to it. And it's one of those things where just it can be very helpful for them. And I agree. I think a lot of golfers are looking at the putter on a 2-footer. They're looking at the putter going back and forth and saying, "Oh, should I arc it or straight back, straight through? Is the face open?" And really, just it's very challenging to make that putt when you're kind of preoccupied and looking at all this other stuff. So for sure, yeah, I agree. And it was a big surprise to me when we did the study. I'll be honest with you, when we did all the measurements, we had the groups do their routines, and then when I went to put in a format for my research partner to throw it in the system and analyze it, I really thought I had done the formula wrong because it's so different. The results were so much surprising towards looking at the hole. I really thought I must have done this all wrong because that can't be that big a deal. And I went through it again, and it was right on. It was just
so. Please expand on those results, so we get a sense of what you're.
Sure, yeah. Well, we just we had people doing different distances, randomizing their practice session, doing different distances, and at the end of the day, when we measured old school way, how far was the ball away from the cup, from the center of the cup, with a measuring tool, it was a lot closer when they practiced looking at the hole. And again, that was just surprising that it would be that big a difference, and it really was. It was very significant. And but again, then you think about it, and then you talk to people, and it's to your point. Well, a basketball player's not going to look at the basketball when he's trying to shoot a free throw. And so it talked to a couple of researchers, and they said, well, sure, it makes a lot of sense that they would have a better sense of the distance because they're looking at the cup, and they're now equating energy and speed of the stroke to get there. And I find it extremely effective. Because a lot of people, if you watch them putt, if you just go out on a golf course with people and watch them putt and watch their routine, they will very often aim up at the pin like they want to, and then do 2 or 3 strokes off to the side without ever looking at the distance they're trying to hit it. So by the time they stand over the golf ball, they have no sense of the distance, and so their distance isn't very good. We'll just have them, if anything, just have them do the rehearsal strokes looking at the hole. We're looking at the distance they want it to go. It's just the simple fact of that will help them, or the step of that will help them hit it the right distance. And a lot of people do a lot better looking at the hole the whole time. And you're kind of doing it from all different distances, not just a set, not just 8-footers or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get comfortable with it. And like the closer I get to the hole, then I'm not just looking at the hole. I'm picking a spot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm going uphill, I'm looking at the back edge of the cup,
Mm-hmm.
right behind the pin. Or I also do, when I'm putting, I look at the hole as a clock, and I'm standing at 6 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, where's the ball? Where do I feel the ball is going to break and go into the hole? Is it going to go in 4 o'clock? Is it going to go into 7 o'clock? Right. So I'm looking at that specific spot when I'm looking at the hole, and trust is such a big part of this. You've got to remove the doubt. You've got to, and that's like, I remember shooting free throws all the time. Is just feeling it.
Yeah.
And now with the putter and just being able to hit that spot, my distance control is so much better. Not worrying about, did I get it over that spot 8 inches in front of the, 8 in front of the ball? Oh no, I missed. I'm just focused on something else, but you really have to trust this. It's not something you just go out and do because you heard a podcast.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think if you were to, in fact, I did this on the golf course just the other day with some folks that were doing on course in our golf school, and they're just really struggling with distance control. They self-admittedly say they always struggle with that. So we just went out I guess we were on the second green of course number 1, just doing some lag putting. And I had them try just 3 putts where they looked at the hole or looked where they needed to putt the ball to compensate for the break. And they immediately did better. But again, it didn't change their strokes. It just simply gave them a better sense of how hard they need to hit it to make it go the right distance. It was a 65-foot putt. They're not going to make it. All they need to do is just get it close enough to tap it in.
Right.
But they're trying to read the break. They're trying to figure out what to do with their stroke. Should I arc it or go straight back straight through? They're delving in all this stuff where at some point it really just becomes a distance putt, make it go 65 feet. And I think if anything, it simplifies it for people. When you do that out on the golf course, it simplifies it. And again, kind of if you don't necessarily do that while you're putting, if you just did the rehearsal strokes with the same strategy you're looking at of, okay, how, where's the ball going to enter the cup? Is it going to be 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock? And then from there, how hard am I trying to hit it? Just the rehearsal strokes, if they're more in line with that, are going to be effective for you, much better. And the amount of people that just basically look at the ball where they're doing the rehearsal strokes amazes me. They're never looking at the distance they want it to go.
Taking the rehearsal strokes, and of course, we're all like taking the rehearsal strokes. You look over at the hole, you look down at the ball, you look at your putter head, and you're taking your rehearsal strokes, trying to remember how far, right? Oh, yeah, I've got it locked in exactly how far it is, and you kind of lose sight of the distance that you're doing when you're looking at the putter head.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I did. And and I'm not too sure. There's going to be people out there that are a lot smarter than I am with all this stuff. But if you have I know that when you're making a swing change with somebody, I tell people this because it's based on motor learning that I've read and been told by countless people. But if you do a rehearsal swing of what you want to do and you're changing your technique. So let's say you're working on not swinging out to in, you want to swing from end out. Classic thing. You do the rehearsal swing, you step up to the ball and you give it a hit. And you've got about a 5 or 6, maybe 7-second window, arguments back and forth, that you have to hit the ball within that time frame before you start losing the feel. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's standing over they've looked at the pin, and I think it carries over to this as well. If they look at a 65-foot putt and then they start looking at the ground and looking at their putter and the ball and looking at their putter and kind of thinking about their technique, most likely they've probably lost the sense of how hard they're going to hit it to make it go the 65 feet because they're getting distracted by all this other stuff. And so I think it would hold up just that. Do the couple practice strokes looking at how far you want it to go. Left to if it breaks left to right, look pass the hole to the left to give yourself plenty of room for the break, and do a couple strokes and putt it. And you're probably going to be better off than not doing it that way. But it's certainly the rehearsal swings and that hitting the ball right afterwards is very helpful in making any type of swing change for sure.
We had Tim Tucker on the show a while ago in the 800s. When was that? In 2023. Do you know Tim?
I know the name for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so he is a putting guru, but also he's a PGA Tour caddy. And the week after he was on the show, he started carrying the bag for Kit Kitayama, and Kit won that week. The thing that stood out to me in that conversation that kind of blew my mind was his emphasis of the point that we take a GPS out on the golf course all the time. We take a rangefinder and we're like, okay, I'm 130 yards from the hole. I'm 88 yards from the hole. I'm 175 yards. We're looking at these distances to determine which club to take and how you want to approach that swing. But when we get on the green, we just stand there and look at the ball and the hole. And he says, which I have implemented in my game, and it's been quite it works well for my head. Step it off. Realize what your distance is, not just by look, but tell yourself, okay, I've done an 18-foot putt before. Okay, I've done a 30-foot putt before, or a 7-foot, whatever it is. So you get a feel for the feel.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that to me, I mean, do you advocate of stepping it off, or are you guys just like take the practice rehearsal strokes and move forward?
It depends on the skill set of the golfer. With the vast majority of people I meet, pacing it off that linear distance, knowing how far it is a really good stepping stone to getting good distance control in their putting. If they know it's 65 feet, at least if they practice a 60-footer, they can easily add 5 more feet to it just because they can recollect what 60 feet felt like when they're trying to do that putt, that distance. So absolutely. Now, there's some players, in fact, I was watching somebody putt today, and they have really good touch no matter what. Any scenario I put them in, really they had a good sense of how hard to hit it to make it go that distance, and then they just had to take a little off or add a little bit because it was uphill or downhill or against grain or whatever. But they're just instinctively really good at that. So I would say, that person doesn't have to, but most of the people, if you say pace them off, they're kind of surprised with, I think that they don't even really have a good sense of, how far is 25 feet. Sometimes people are looking at a 25-footer and they're, if you ask them how far it is, they'll say 12 feet. It's like, well, not quite. So it's kind of funny. Their awareness of it is just not so good. So anyway, definitely pace it off. And what we do quite often in the schools, we'll set up a station where almost like a ladder drill. In fact, we recreate the study in instinct putting that started that, where we have them putt from different distances. We randomize it. So there might be a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30-foot putt. They bounce around between the different distances trying to make it go that to the cup. And you don't do it in like 5, 10, 15, 20. You bounce it around a little bit. And then they start getting to where they have a good sense of a 30-foot putt is this much energy. So then you just turn and say, okay, now make it go 30 feet, make it go 20 feet. They're already starting to get a sense of it, or like a template maybe, of how hard to hit it to make it go the right distance. And it's the beginning part of it, knowing if they pace it off, it's a 30-foot putt. Well, I know how hard to hit it now. At least I'm closer to knowing how hard to hit it, for sure. That's a great way to do it.
I've talked to instructors and brought up the concept of instinct putting, of looking at the hole while you're putting. And a lot of them are like, well, that's really an interesting method, but it's probably better for when you're practicing, not on the course. And you're even saying what we should be doing is when we take our rehearsal swings on the course, looking at the hole.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I find it now that's a little bit anecdotal because I'm just going by my experience, but for sure, everybody I've ever had do, anytime I've ever watched anybody never look at where they want the ball to go and the distance they need it to go. If they just do that, if I add that step to their routine, they improve immediately. They automatically, and they'll actually hit one every once in a while and immediately say, "Oh, that's too hard." because they recognize I put too much energy in that one to make it go that distance. So it is very helpful for sure.
No, wait, let me stop you. When you say that's too hard, is that when they're looking at the hole?
Well,
when they're looking at the ball?
They'll look at the ball. Might be looking at the ball in this one, but they'll hit it and immediately know that's too much energy for the distance I needed to go. And they're knowing it as the ball's 10 feet off the face of the putter. So their awareness of speed becomes increased very quickly or improved very quickly. I think it's hard for people to do that out on the golf course, but I mean, a lot of people that I know that have switched to that strategy, that looking at the hole, do it because they get so distracted with the putter, watching the putter go back and forth and getting consumed by that if they just take that out of the equation and the strokes are not that bad, and if they just got to free themselves up a little bit just to get the right distance and the right speed. But it's amazing how quickly people can adapt to it. I've gone out on the golf course and tried it some. But it is awkward. No doubt, it is awkward. But some people, it's about the only way they can putt too. They really struggle with putting without that.
Do you recommend instinct putting to putters to be looking at the hole all the time, or once they get comfortable with it? Is this something you use just on your short putts inside 10 feet, maybe, or whatever, or take it all the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably that, and this is just more my observation of people who use that strategy. It makes sense that you could use it all the time, but I think some people really are more comfortable with it I'm just thinking of a person the other day that if they were outside of 10 feet, they used that, but then inside the 10 feet, they felt like they had they had a free stroke. It was not bogged down by mechanics, and so they weren't worried so much about the speed. But on a 40-footer, they're always kind of defaulting to, I got to have a better sense of how hard to hit it. So they felt like their speed was really the issue for those types of putts, which I mean, statistically, that's probably true. I mean, you're probably going to 3-putt from 45 feet more so by distance and by misreading the green, I suppose. I mean, not all the time, but certainly the people I see, they're gonna miss a 40-footer because of speed more so than the green or the slope. So that they do that more. But I think it was Jordan Spieth, wasn't he? He was kind of doing it more on the shorter putts, maybe the 15 feet in. I mean, for a while, and so I think it just depends on the person, I guess. But
yeah, so every time I talk about this, people go, "Oh, Jordan Spieth did that for a while."
Yeah.
And did you ever work with him?
No, actually, did not. I think Cameron. I'm not too sure if his coach took the information because he saw it, we published it someplace, or maybe it fit in. Later on, he recognized that what we'd kind of done a study that matched up with what they were doing. But he certainly was for a while doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so when you started doing this research, and this is what, like now 15, 18 years old or even older when you started doing the instinct putting research?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the instinct putting. Yeah, I guess we did. We did probably 2006 or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Since then, there's been a huge, let's call it impact on the golf community by zero torque putters, especially Lab Golf, leading the way. And the success they've been having more and more. And do you know Sam Hahn over at Lab Golf?
I do not know. I mean, it's pretty hot right now for sure. Yeah, they're doing
it's
okay
one
right
of the
now.
hottest. Have you seen a putter company explode like that, or even any independent golf company explode like that?
I don't think so, and I think it would. In fact, I was just virtually having a conversation today with a guy who was asking me if I had any. Remember back in the day when Jack Nicklaus won the '86 Masters, and he had that really big aluminum putter that McGregor made for him, and he was for some reason looking for that putter, and we were talking virtually in terms of that was the hottest putter the week after the Masters for sure, and nobody had him. These guys have really changed the way people are thinking about the putter. It's certainly going to be. It'll be around a lot longer than the aluminum putter Nicklaus had.
I think so.
But yeah, it's amazing really what they've done. Yeah, it's great. It's exciting.
It's spectacular.
People wanting to buy the putter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you have companies going, we have a zero torque putter. We have a zero torque putter. And then you do the test that Sam usually does with the revealer. And it's like, yeah, it's not really a zero torque putter. Have you tried using a lab putter? Have you worked at all?
I have messed around with it. One of our staff had one, and we were out there trying it, and it felt great. I mean, as far as I think I'm probably a little bit too old school in the head designs, but I mean, as far as it still had a great putt, and I'd love to see somebody do some research on and I'm sure they've got this someplace, but just how the ball comes off the face, slightly different than a not to pick on any brand, but the Scotty Cameron or something like that. Is there all that much difference in how the ball comes off the face? And it'd just be interesting to see that. But it feels good to me. I like the putter. Nothing bad.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave that scientific research to you.
Oh, no. I don't do equipment. No, that's way too hard. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when I started to play golf, not long before. I mean, I was in my 40s when I started playing, not long before I started doing the podcast and you were on the show. And so I was really ignorant about so much of it. And I'm not saying that I'm not ignorant still. That's why I keep asking questions. But to me, my eye always went to a center shafted mallet putter.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I first saw a lab, it's like, oh, well, this is definitely for me. And the one thing that I think that lab users will agree on is that no matter where you hit it on the face, you're pretty much going to get the line that you set up for.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to, maybe affect the speed a little bit if you hit it on the toe or on the heel, but the line's going to be true.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, as far as if you can create consistency in that, you can really, at least to me in putting, if I have somebody that has the putter face a degree open at impact every time and it's more or less centered hit, I mean, you can change it, but maybe that's not where you got to put your attention. Maybe you just need to worry about distance control or better reading of the greens or something like that. So yeah, if you can minimize the dispersion coming off the face by head design, it makes a lot of sense as it being very popular. And I'm sure they're going to sell a bunch, and there'll probably be a lot of people trying to recreate some of the same ideas in the next wave of products. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's just like anything else. We mess around with the Sam Putt Lab in our schools, and the amount that how much the starting direction is so different with golfers, amateur golfers at least, that there's just no consistency in that. And if you can influence that by that putter design, or if they toe it and heel it, you still get the same start point. Not too bad.
And that's part of why I'm feeling so strongly about doing instinct putting now, is that I feel that if I'm looking at my target spot, not looking at the ball, but where I want the ball to go or end up or pass through, I mean, it depends on how far the putt is and what the break is, that the lab putter is going to just obey my command, basically, right? Oh, yeah. I'm feeling comfortable. So then to me, it's all about the distance control, always has. But now looking at the target, my distance control is even better because I know where it's going. I have a better feel for it. And again, you got to trust it. You can't use any doubt. You can't in their backstroke going, is this right? I'm like,
am I getting hit the ball? Yeah.
Yeah, you've really got to trust it.
Well, I think one thing that I would tell, I'd say to golf professionals who, when we talk about this, I'll say the one thing, the one flaw of the study, and we just didn't think about this. We should have had cameras set up that looked at the putting strokes, the differences between the stroke without looking at the hole and when they did look at the hole, because in hindsight, we were, Bob and I were standing back there along with, we had a lot of people helping us with the study, and a lot of the folks that were helping us with the study were saying that they thought the strokes looked better when the people were looking at the hole. Now, it's all anecdotal, but we started thinking about that, and then it was, well, we're watching somebody, and it doesn't seem like they were moving their body so much. Because if you move your body a bunch, it's probably pretty hard to hit the putt solid when you're looking away. So maybe it simplified the strokes a little bit, and that could be an argument for why people should give it a try, just because it could improve your stroke slightly. But we felt like that's what we saw happening, but we didn't gather any data on how did the stroke change. We just were basing it on outcome. So
interesting. And one of the huge elements of the instinct putting that I think it solves a big problem for so many golfers is that in their normal stroke, when they're looking at the ball instead of the target, as soon as the ball leaves the putter face, their head is turning to see where it's going, and that's going to impact, and they don't really realize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't realize that when they turn their head like that, their shoulders are now turning, and it's going to affect their stroke.
Sure. Yeah,
and so they'll probably be offline.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the other, for sure, and I think the other benefit of it is that it's hard for people to catch really where the ball gets struck. By the time you really see where it is, it's probably 5 feet in front of you already. And so they do miss that first 5 feet of potential break or starting direction. So I think some of the benefits of it as well is that you're looking at the hole, but you've already got peripherally, you've got a good sense of where the ball's starting out on your line. I think sometimes it's hard to see the starting point on your line when your head's down, then trying to catch it 5 feet off the face. You miss that at least. So that's kind of one of the things I like about it too.
Right, is that your head is already turned.
Yeah, it's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah,
and it makes a difference. It really does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you're having some success with it. It's great.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so glad that you that after I reached out to you to have you come back on, that you did respond to, because this has been everything I'd hoped it would be in our conversation. I got all the information, and I now have more confidence in the idea of looking at the hole when I'm putting.
That's good.
And I highly recommend. Now, there's a new version of the book, right? It's a revised version. Tell me about that real quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to update the information and just kind of add a few more things to it. I think it's it's just one of those things, like anything, information changes over the years, and we just tried to update some of the information. And I think it's still a good read. It's a little bit less dry than our evidence-based golf book, but evidence-based golf is pretty much straightforward with here's study one and here's what we found. So, which I think knowledge is information for the amateur golfer is not a bad thing.
Right.
Having a better, a good sense of what goes on, whether it's ball flight or the putting stroke, the new information that's coming out in putting, or even the ball flight laws with all the new technology, all that stuff is very helpful for golfers. So if you like reading a book, it's not a bad one, I suppose.
No, and again, it's called Instinct Putting Revisited.
Yeah, revisited. Yeah.
Look where you want to putt the ball. Revised edition, the breakthrough science based on target vision putting technique. A great read, fascinating read. It's really going to spark your imagination. And at the very least, do it while you're practicing your putting. Don't start with it on the course. Don't do that. Yeah. No, definitely practice with it a while before you take it out there, because you have to trust it when you do it. Eric Alpenfels from Pinehurst. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show and for your longtime friendship with Golf Smarter. I appreciate it so much. Well,
thank you so much. It's great to see. It's hard to believe it's been that long. So thank you so much, and congratulations on all your success. It's great. What you're doing is great for golfers across the board. So professionals as